Well, look, good morning, and I love the fact that y'all showed up. It is cold outside today. Lord Jesus, yes it is, yes it is. I almost didn't show up. I was going to let Zaki preach. But yes, ma'am, I do understand that not only is it a cold morning, but you know, some of us are not feeling well. You know, there have been some things that have happened over this past week and even yesterday that caused some of us not to be here. And some of us are not here intentionally based on our work schedules or this, that, and the other. But look, I love the fact that you all showed up, and I love the fact that those who are not here actually want to be here. Because it is a blessing to be in the house of the Lord. Amen? Amen. And so I just recently came back from Dallas at a leadership conference, and one of the things we were discussing, at least in one of the side sessions or the side talks I've had with some of the folks I met, was whether or not church was okay if you just go by, you know, if you just watch it on television. You know, if it's okay to go to church, and if it's fulfilling, if it's good enough just to watch it on TV. Well, my only problem with that is that you miss the relationship. You miss the undergirding part of your Christian walk. And if you look at the cross, if we point our eyes to the cross, we're all geared towards that vertical relationship. Well, it's the horizontal relationship that we share with our brothers and sisters that help us with that vertical, and to keep that vertical our most important relationship together. So I thank God for your lovely and shining faces this morning. You all help my walk when I see you. Amen? Amen. Amen, amen, amen. So if you would, for this morning, we will close out our sermon series, New, by going to the book of Ruth. So we spoke of being a new creation. We've spoken of new life. Today we want to talk about new possibilities. New possibilities. So he's made you a new creature, a new creation. He's given you a new life. But you may be asking, like my soul was asking, well, that sounds good for forever, God. But what about here and right now? What do I do about 2019? Until you call me home, what else you got for me in this whole new business? And again, this goes along with the fact that January is the month of new. We come up with these new diets and new plans and new everything. Well, I want for us to begin to associate that new feeling with God. Because if it was not for God, we would know what new is. If he hadn't spoke in Genesis 1:1, and if he hadn't brought this thing into creation, we wouldn't understand, we wouldn't be able to experience new. So I want us to be able to associate that same idea, that same feeling we get when we smell that new car smell. When we smell the new shoes smell, and the new clothes smell, and that new house smell. Now, I don't mean like somebody else's house that you buy. I mean like a brand new built house type of new. Well, I want us to associate that sort of thing with God. Because the new life he breathes into us is even better than those chemicals they put together to make up that new car smell. Amen? Amen. Amen. So if you would join me in the book of Ruth, and I ask you to not only have your Bible, but actually keep it open. I will present a few verses in front of you here, but there are a couple of other passages within Ruth that I want for us to go through throughout this passage. Throughout this sermon. So, Ruth is a woman of Moab. She's not of the country of Israel. She's not so-called one of God's chosen people. But she married into the Israelite family by way of her husband. Her husband was a man named, I'll say his name is Malone. That's not really how you pronounce it, but that's how Brad's going to pronounce it, because I don't know how you pronounce it. Anyway. But I like his brother's name. He has a brother named Chilion. That sounds like a rapper's name. I don't know about you, but it sounds like an 85 rapper, somewhere around there. Chilion. And their father's name was Elimelech. Their mother's name was Naomi. This book opens up with this family transitioning, the mother, the father, and the sons to the city or the country of Moab. Because there was a famine in Israel. They're from Bethlehem, but they're moving to Moab. They're moving from God's country outside of God's country. Don't miss that. Now, they didn't just move there temporarily. They moved there and they settled in. They bought houses. They got jobs. They became part of the family, became part of the community. And you know this because Chilion and Mahlon, they actually married into the Moab family. Chilion married a young lady named Orpah. Mahlon married Ruth. And this book tells Ruth's story. Now, unfortunately for this family, disaster strikes. And it strikes early in the book. The father, Elimelech, dies. And then the two sons, they both die. So Naomi, it almost could be a book about Naomi. She needs her own Bible, her own book of the Bible all by herself. Because she just lost in short order her husband and her two sons. But in here, we want to focus on Ruth because there's a special reason why we want to focus on Ruth. So after all this loss, Naomi chooses, like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go back home. God has dealt me a bitter hand. He has dealt with me horribly. I don't believe I've done anything wrong, but he's dealt with me horribly. So you know what? I'm just going to pack up and I'm headed back home. I'm going to head back to Bethlehem. And so she tells her two daughters-in-law because of the kind of woman she is. Now I want to say this because some of y'all got mothers-in-law. And you don't really like your mother-in-law. But Ruth loves her mother-in-law. She loves her mother-in-law. So when her mother-in-law speaks to them and she says, look, I don't have anything to give y'all. So this is what I want the best for you. So what I want you to do is go back home. Go back to your families. I'm sorry. My husband has passed. Your husbands, my sons, have passed. I don't want you to continue to deal to be part of the bitterness that God has unfortunately allowed in my life. So y'all go back home to your families where they can take care of you. Because baby, I can't do nothing for you. Orpah kisses her mother-in-law and says, Mom, you know you're right. I'm going to go ahead and go back home. But this book is named after Ruth because Ruth has an entirely different response. And we pick up on it here in verse 15. So this is Naomi speaking, and she said, look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth says, entreat me or ask me not to leave you or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you sleep, I will sleep. And your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, this is the ultimate part. Where you die, I will die. And there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. Now that's a mother-in-law love. I don't know what kind of greens Naomi was cooking, but Ruth, she and Mama they was tight. I think they went to bingo together, and so here's the deal. This is what we find in this particular passage. We need to commit. We need to commit. See, all of us are in some particular place in our walk with God. And sometimes he causes us to move to another location. Now, sometimes you dealt with transition, and sometimes the transitions you deal with is because you made the choice. You made the choice to move to another city. You made the choice to move to another job. So you deal with that transition. But what do you do when life chooses for you? Yes. When life takes someone that you love away from you. When life takes your job away from you. And you still have young children to take care of at home. See, it's a different thing when it's just you. It's a different thing when it's just you and your wife. It's a whole different thing when you got young mouths to feed. And the job just says, you know what? We're just going to end you. And it's one thing when they take the job away, but this is also what happens. See, our identity is captured in that job. And we're wrapped up in those 40 hours of that week. And so when it's stripped from us, we lose part of who we are. That's the part that hurts. the relationships that were built can be sustained outside the job. But now I've got to find a transition to a new identity. Here's the secret with God. All things come through God. Every good thing comes from God. The bad stuff got to pass through God. So even when it's something that you don't like, it doesn't mean it comes as a surprise to your God. Your husband want to leave you? Not a surprise to God. Your wife want to leave you? Not a surprise to God. Your job let you go? God is not surprised. God has never looked up and said, oh, my bad, I didn't know that. Words you will never hear come from your God's mouth. Your God knows absolutely everything that touches you before you ever know it. But this is what our God does. He takes the good and he takes the bad and he makes it all work together for your good. So it don't matter what the enemy tries to use to distract you or discourage you or demote you or put you down. God still takes it and counterpunches and makes it towards your good. Oh, it don't feel good, but it is good. So I understand that Ruth may be in mourning because she lost her husband. I understand that she even lost her father-in-law. I understand that her heart may be aching because she knows her new mother is hurting. Have you ever hurt because somebody else is hurting? I mean, it tears you up more than that. They're the ones that lost and they got to comfort you. Have you been there? Because you hurt so much because you love them so much. And you hate to see the bad happen to them. But that's where Ruth is. But what Ruth does, she presses in instead of running away. She could have returned home. And look, there is nothing wrong with Orpah does as long as you keep it here on earth. A logical solution is an excellent solution as long as you're only talking about earth. But at some point, your faith has to come into focus here. Your faith has to come into action here. And you and I have got to learn when the transition happens, that stuff that we don't ask for, when God gives us these new possibilities, the things that we didn't ask for, we got to learn to press into God and to commit more to God. And you and I, you may be thinking, well, I have a relationship with God already, so me and God, we cool already. You know, we boys, we good. Your relationship continuously and forever grows with God. You are never finished growing in God. And these transition moments are just more opportunity for you to get closer and closer and closer to God. So Ruth tells Naomi, where you go, I go. Where you sleep, I sleep. If anything comes between us, it will only be death. You may not have a mother-in-law, a mama, a daddy, or anyone else that you're willing to make that commitment to. But we ought to have a relationship with God. What she's speaking to Naomi is what we ought to speak to God. You see, remember now, she's from Moab, so she don't know this God. She may have gods, but they're lowercase g gods. They're not the big G God. And see, the thing that makes us different is that we get to have a personal relationship with God. You see, it's called a walk. And see, a walk is good because you get to exercise not only your feet, but also your relationship with whom you're walking with. You can't walk too long with somebody and not speak to them. And if you walk long enough, you start talking about what's going on in your life. And they start talking about what's going on in their life. By the end of that walk, y'all are best buddies. The same with your walk with God. We have got to commit more to God when the challenging time comes in that transition from old, current position to new possibilities. We have got to commit more to God. The second point I want to make. If you would jump in with me at Ruth chapter 2. Verse 7 and 8. There's something I want for us to see here, and listen to the words of Ruth. And this is what Ruth says to this man named Boaz. And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came, and she came and has continued from morning until now, though she rested a little in the house. Verse 8, then Boaz said to Ruth, you will listen, my daughter, will you not? Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. Let me unpack that a little bit for you. Ruth is traveling with Naomi, but they're living in a world that's not like today. And today, a woman can just go out and get a job. Any old job she wants to. There's equality between the sexes. But at this day and time, in this country, it wasn't like that. It was a man's world. As a matter of fact, it was a man's world. That a woman couldn't even provide for herself. So she had to have a man, either her father or her husband, that provided for her. Well, they just lost everybody. They've lost all the providers in their life. If her husband died, at least she can rely on her father-in-law. But her father-in-law dies. So now what does she do? So she attaches to Naomi. Look, Naomi can't provide for herself. So then why? What's the purpose here? She already told you. Your God will be my God. You see, I believe that she saw how Naomi's God worked for her when she met Naomi and her son in Moab. I've seen how your God provides for you. The gods that I serve, they cool. But they don't do what your God do. So wherever you go, I go. Wherever you sleep, I sleep. And your God will be my God. So they finally make it back to Bethlehem in chapter 2. They need some food. So they go out and they get, in essence, part of their SNAP card. They get part of the welfare program. The welfare program in Israel is that when you have a harvest, you don't harvest it all. When you have a crop, you don't gather it all. You leave a little along the edges so that the widows can come and gather. And the homeless can come and gather. And the passers-by can come and gather. So you leave a little bit for everyone else. You take enough for you and your family, but you leave a little bit for everybody else. So Ruth gathers herself in the morning and says, Mom, I'm going to go out and get us some food. Go ahead, baby. You go ahead out there and grocery shop for us. So she goes out and she begins to glean. But she's gleaning at Boaz's field. She doesn't know exactly who Boaz is. But she wants to find favor in Boaz's eyes. You see, Boaz is the relative of her father-in-law. And he will become what is known today as a foreshadowing of Christ. He will become their kinsman redeemer. She doesn't know it then, but she will come to find out that she's gleaning in the field of the one that will provide for them, for the one that will take care of them. She will go from gleaning to harvesting. Right now she's gleaning, but because she's in Boaz's field, she will eventually reap the harvest. Follow me on this. If she doesn't show up here, her faith is really not being exercised. She's developing the faith that we now have. You see, we have the book of Ruth to read from. She's living the book of Ruth that we're reading from. She's got to exercise the faith before it's written down. But get this, she's from Moab. She don't know nothing about this God. All she knows is what she heard and what she's seen in Naomi. We read her story, and we still don't even have the faith that she had, and I haven't even read her story. Amen. Amen. Are you following me? Yes. Yes. She's showing the kind of faith that we should show because we have the God that she's only heard about. We have a personal relationship with the God that she's just barely seen. She's developing a relationship that we should all envy. She's following someone that can't provide for themselves. to a country that she does not belong to. She is virtually homeless and they have nothing to eat. But God leads her to her kinsman redeemer. And listen here, listen here. This is what he says to her in verse 8. Don't go to anybody else's field and get anything. As a matter of fact, you walk alongside my young ladies, the ones that work for me, the ones that are part of my family, you walk alongside with them. Because see, they can get more than just that stuff that's along the edges. They can get everything that they want. So you come on, you get as much as you and Naomi need. There's a blessing in that. And here's the blessing, here's the blessing, here's the blessing. She gets the blessing because she's learned how to lean. The word here is called glean. You and I will never go by anybody's crop and glean corn or wheat or barley or anything else. But you're in need of something. You're in need of something. I don't know what it is. You're in need of something. And where you go get that something from tells me where your heart is. It tells God where your heart is. See, oftentimes when we're in this transition and we've lost a lot of things, we tend to want to go back to the stuff we used to do. We tend to want to go back to the places we used to go. We want to go back to the people we used to hang out with. But see, first, if we commit to God, more and more of our lives, if we commit to God and drill deeper into that relationship, but also we've got to learn to lean on God. The Bible tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he shall direct your path. We have got to learn how to lean in the right direction. We lean on everybody else. And see, it's good to have a big mama you can lean on every once in a while. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. You out there doing your thing. You got your kids and the things are going all right. And then all of a sudden something bad happens. And big mama says, "Don't worry about it. Come on, I got a spare room. Y'all can just stay here until you get back on your feet." You know what I mean. You have friends. You got friends. You got friends. You got friends. You got friends that will go out and get you lunch when you can't get away from your computer. You leaning. That's some good stuff. When you're going through hard times, you're in college and you're trying to study, but you're missing a class. Well, I got a friend that takes good notes. Not them kind of scribbled notes you can barely read. Not where he takes notes on this board and all you get is the top line and nothing else. No, this dude, he takes good notes. So I'll just get his notes. Baby, you can lean. What happens when Big Mama dies? What happens when you lost a job and you no longer need your friend to come and bring you lunch? What happens when that student transfers or graduates? Everything is temporary except God, who is forever. So that's why we have got to learn to lean on him. We've got to learn how to lean and lean in the right direction. And God tells us, he's so bold. God, Jesus, he is so bold. He's so bold, he tells flawed people like me to ask for anything you need. Oh Lord, you just messed up. Ooh, pull out this list. Get this phone right here. Yeah. Flip to that memo pad. We about to be scrolling forever. I need some of this, and I need some of that. He is so bold to tell people like me to ask for whatever you need. Because you've committed to God, then you can ask. Because you have a relationship with God, then you can ask. And there's a relationship here, and the relationship should be looked at as father and child. Father and child. Unfortunately, in our community, fathers don't have a good name. Unfortunately, fathers abandon their children. They run away from their responsibility. So we're used to, and you may have experienced it in your life, where your father was not in the home. And if he was in the home, he was so horrible, you wish he was out of the home. And then your child grows up because you have no respect for fathers without a father. But that's why I say, bless the Lord for all the fathers who not only stick with their children, but help raise their children and love their children and raise their children in the right way. To make sure that they are self-sustaining members of this society, God-believing, self-sustaining members of this society. But you have a God that goes even better, goes above the best father you know. When he says, ask me for anything you need, it would be like if some broke uncle told you to ask, you tell me what you want for Christmas, but you know that uncle ain't got no job. You like Uncle Junebug, quit playing. I know you ain't got no money. You know you ain't got no money. I'm not sure when you plan on getting this, but I don't think I'm alone. But when your God tells you to ask for anything you need, you're talking about the God that owns everything. It says in the Bible that he owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. That may not compute. Let me help you out. He owns the houses and the cars on every hill on this earth. When it says that he owns everything, he's made everything, you can believe that. There was nothing that's made that wasn't made by him. So if he has the provisions and he's my father, he is a good father. And he will never let me, his child, he will never let you, his child, go without your needs being met. Lean on your father and trust that he will provide. There's a last thing I need for us to do here. We need to make sure we're practicing faith and living out this faith. The transition from where you were, and I want to recognize where you are. Where you are, you're comfortable. You know, and raise your hand if you don't like comfort. That's what I thought. No, everybody likes to be comfortable. If you didn't like to be comfortable, your couches would be made of stone. But right now, your couches are nice and comfortable and soft and cushy. They got a dent in it because you've been sitting on it so long. Everybody loves to be comfortable. But God has this thing with comfort. See, what he knows is you don't grow as long as you're comfortable. So he's got to churn and mess up some stuff in your life according to your record. According to him, it's according to his divine order. Yes. But according to you, he just messed up everything. You had it all perfect. Have you ever seen these national Lego competitions or these national Lego exhibitions? They set up thousands and thousands of Legos. Now, we might have like 50. You know, you set them up and, you know, knock them down. It's about a good half second, DJ, and the Lego exhibition is done. But these people set up thousands of Legos that go in multiple directions, that cover an entire gymnasium floor. And then they knock down one, and everything just falls in order. We set up our lives along these Legos. You know, and you got your job in one place, you got your boo and your baby daddy in another, you got your children, and you got your house, and you set up all this good stuff, and you don't want nobody to go knock it over. But God comes along and allows that thing to just kind of fall down on itself, and you just hate God for that. You have a bad taste in your mouth with God. You start talking, well, I've been church hurt. What are you talking about, church hurt? That got nothing to do with church. Why did church mess up your life? Then we give God a bad idea and a bad name because we can't accept his word. This is where we have to have faith. You see, trust is one thing. Trust is when I've seen you do it before, so I know you'll do it again. Faith is, I ain't seen nothing, but I know you can. I've never been here before. I was comfortable where I was, and I trusted you for where I was, and I told you that I love you for providing a job for me, and I love you for giving me a house, and I love you for that my refrigerator is always full, and I trusted you for my provisions. Yes. Well, now you've wrecked all of that, and now I've got to have faith that you will take me to a new possibility that will be greater than where I left. It takes faith. It takes faith. And no one is exempt from your faith walk. No one is exempt from having him put more weight on that faith exercising walk. No one is exempt. We've all got to go through the same thing. So while you're going through this transition, this is what I want you to remember. While you're going through this transition and you're at the bad side of your relationship with God, and you don't feel good about where He's got you, you want to keep holding on to Him, but your life situation is telling you that you're failing. Don't leave this transition without having exercised faith. Because you don't want to get to the mountaintop. You don't want to get to the new possibility and then look back and say, God, I should have had more faith. I should have had more faith when I was in that valley. I should have had more faith. I should have trusted you more. The same way I trusted you with the things I can see, feel, and touch. I should have trusted you even when I couldn't see where I was going. When it was too dark and I couldn't see. When it was too far down the road and I couldn't see. I should have trusted you, Lord. So much so that that was not real, seemed real because you spoke it. See, in this transition phase, God is clothing us. It's not that you didn't have on clothes before. But see, the issue is the clothes that are on your heart ain't the clothes that you need for that new possibility He's leading you to. Sometimes the clothes that you have on, they are too tattered, and they're too raggedy, and they're too dirty for Him to take you to where you are, to where He wants you to go. So He's got to unclothe you so He can take you through this dressing room called transition, so He can get you positioned where you are. Sometimes the clothes you have on are good, but they're not good enough for where God is taking you. Sometimes you can be inappropriately dressed for your new possibility. Have you ever had somebody show up at work and they, after 5 work, and they're supposed to be dressed for 9 to 5? Has that happened to y'all? I didn't think glitter belonged in the workplace. But she come with a strapless dress, glittered down, and boots up to here. How that's 9 to 5 gear, I don't know. The clothes are good, but you're in the wrong situation. I've seen guys come to work with, in an office environment, holes in their jeans, oil stains on this leg. There's a circle around their wallet where they've worn these jeans for so long. And it's just fading out. Have y'all been there? Those clothes are good. You're just in the wrong situation. In this new possibility that God has for you, He's got to strip you of what you have so that you can go through this transition dressing room for Him to clothe you the way that you need to be clothed for your new possibility. So He clothes you in more patience. He clothes you in more love. He clothes you in kindness. He clothes you in long suffering. For where He's taking you, you just need to be better clothed. Sometimes it doesn't matter that back here your clothes were good. So we've got to trust God. This is what I mean. You've got to trust God so much that you will only define good if God is in it. Are you hearing? Are you following me? Good ain't good unless it's got God in it. That's where Ruth life comes into play for us. See, in Moab, she didn't have this God. But she moves back to Bethlehem. She loses Mahlon. She loses her husband. She loses her provider. She loses her security. Goes through this transition phase. To get to Bethlehem, she didn't have this God in Moab. But she had Him and more of Him in Bethlehem. And what you want to understand is at the end of chapter 4, you begin to see now why God tore down her life in Moab, took her through this transition, this dressing room called transition, to position her in Bethlehem. See, she eventually marries Boaz. She marries Boaz. They have a child named Obed. Obed may not mean anything to you. But see, Obed has a son, and his name is Jesse. And see, Jesse might not mean nothing to you. But then Jesse has a son whose name is David, who eventually becomes the anointed king of Israel. That might not mean nothing to you until I tell you that God told David that I will forever establish your throne. And the way he established his throne was through Jesus Christ. Oh, you may not understand it, but read through Matthew chapter 1 and you see the lineage. And eventually, if Ruth didn't move from Moab to Bethlehem, David would have never been born. Then who would God have promised that I would establish your kingdom forever? Jesus comes through the natural line of King David. God sometimes tears down your life so he can set up something for generations in the future. Possibilities that you will never see, that you will never come to witness. But you and I have got to commit more to God and trust God and have faith in God. That even though I can't see it, I know you can. Even though I don't know it, I know you know it. I just simply need to hold on, commit more, love you more, trust you, and allow you to lead and guide my life. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no situation that you're in that God doesn't know. You said you're going through loss. That loss came by no surprise to your God. So-and-so job don't want you no more. It's heartbreaking, but your God is not surprised. God never promised any of us a rose-petaled walk to heaven. All of us will go through valleys. All of us will have mountaintop moments. The one thing that is true between the valley and the mountaintop for you that call yourselves children of the Most High God is that God will forever be with you. There are two things you can count on. God is not a liar, and God is omnipresent. When he says he will be with us and he will never leave us, he did not lie. And he's omnipresent. That means he's anywhere and everywhere all at the same time. He has no choice but to have his presence in your life because he's omnipresent. Take advantage of it. Press into him and be more committed to him. Trust him. And don't leave that transition moment without exercising your faith. Amen? Amen. Stand on your feet.